Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hemping with Father Joe podcast. And I think we got a little pixelation here tonight. I'm not sure how to fix it. We'll talk to the producer once we bring him on. Tonight, we're going to be discussing why the Michigan Hemp Farmer Association voted to continue to remain to keep the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development in charge of the hemp program here in the state of Michigan versus letting the U.S. Department of Agriculture be in control of it. And we're going to have a discussion about it tonight. And we ask it if you have any comments or you can share any of your experiences with what we're discussing, to please chime in. And in our usual manner, we are going to open up in prayer and get the show started. So thanks for tuning in and joining us tonight. And in our usual fashion, we'll just ask you, Father God, to please bless tonight's podcast, and please open our hearts and minds, God, to all things hemp, and just to guide us and direct us in everything we do, God, and let us walk away with some knowledge that we didn't have prior to the podcast. And Lord, please let our discussion reach out to lawmakers and attorneys and business owners and farmers and anyone that's in the Michigan hemp industry or in the hemp industry here in the United States. God, I ask that you just bless the show tonight, God, and give us all something to walk away with that we can use in our businesses and in our lives or in the industry as any part of it that we're in. So we ask these things in Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. So thanks again for tuning in. I'm going to bring in our guest, actually co-host, producer, Justin Trowbridge. Are you there? Let's see here.
Helps when I don't have it muted. Sorry.
Okay. Let me bring in Tasha. Are you with us, Tasha?
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm here.
Good evening. Good to hear your voice, you guys. So tonight, we're going to talk about why the Michigan Hemp Farmer Association board voted to choose the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development to continue to have oversight over the Michigan hemp industry versus the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So I'm going to name some obvious things I'll bring up, and then we can get into the discussion. But so for those of you that don't know, where's my notes here? So 47 states in the United States are we hemp. They all hemp. That includes Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. They all have USDA approved programs in place. Let's see here. And I need to mention several tribes. I think there was, I want to say 20 tribes that when I researched, I found 20 tribes. Now, out of all the people that are participating in the hemp programs here in the U.S., these are the states that are, they've opted to use the USDA program versus using their state-ran agricultural programs. Okay, so Michigan, we use MDARD, the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. However, these states that I'm going to mention and several tribes, they use the USDA program, which means that they had to submit an application to the USDA. They had 60 days to review it and make changes and so forth and so on. And basically what it comes down to approval-wise is if their program is set up that is compliant with the 2018 final rules. And those states are, for example, Hawaii, Missouri, Mississippi, New Hampshire, Wisconsin, Vermont, Utah, and North Carolina right now. Though they are all operating on a federal program through the USDA. As where Michigan is not, we have our own hemp program here through our agricultural department. Now, I think the thing to mention is that for me personally, when the first thing that came to my mind when they called me and asked, MDARD called me and said, "Hey, Joe, we're trying to figure out, do we stay the course with MDARD or do we turn it over to the USDA?" And instantly I thought, well, that shouldn't even be a choice, because in 2018, Michigan had a ballot initiative vote, and 56% of the people in the state turned out. That's an amazing amount, and voted in favor of legalization of the recreational cannabis and of industrial hemp. So some people don't realize this, but the people of Michigan decided way before President Trump ever federally legalized industrial hemp in the United States. Michigan was already legal. The people spoke. And for me, although, and let me, if you guys don't remember this, I did not support, there was a point where I said, no, we're not supporting this ballot initiative. And I'll tell you why. For those that aren't familiar, let me turn that off. Sorry, guys. Actually, one of our board members, Mr. Vega. We initially supported it. Okay, so we're a conservative organization. They come to us, they say, here's the ballot initiative. We want you to support recreational cannabis. We're going to put hemp in it. What do you need? What does this need to have in the language so that your organization and people of faith and Christians across the state of Michigan will support this ballot initiative? And I was very clear. We needed 1% THC, not 0.3, 1.0. And the reason that I was so adamant about it is because I know how important it is as far as CBD goes, CBD production, to have the 1%, because now you can get up into higher percentages of CBD to THC ratios. At 0.3, you're only going to be limited to a certain level of CBD production. When you have 1%, you could have as high as, we have a cultivar called Deke that's named after my brother who is deceased. At 1%, this stuff is 32% CBD. So think about the increase of profit per acre if we were able to grow a cultivar, hemp cultivar, that could produce 32% CBD. But you can't do that. You can't get that high when the limit is 0.3. And matter of fact, we can't go over 0.5 here in the state of Michigan. So let me bring it back. So originally we were supporting the initiative. I'm not going to get into the politics of it because there was some politics that I didn't agree with. 1% was on the original language. My pundits are going to say, hey, some things get added onto the language and then they get taken out later. Well, they didn't get taken out until they cashed my check. So I was a little salty, to be honest with you. And I can say this truthfully today. I did not handle it professionally. I acted childlike with my behavior. I was very upset that they took our money and they didn't come through with the 1% because I felt they cheated and stole the 1% away from Michigan farmers to give that 1% to a different state. Because I'm not going to even mention it, but we know there's another state that has 1%, and the people that made that happen, they were the same people who took away our 1% opportunity. So now they said, hey, Joe, you'll just go back and you'll get the 1% later. Well, we all know how slow that can be. We're a couple of years, 2018 into the program. We're 2023, and that's not even on the radar, 1%. We're still trying to get hemp foods for humans and animals to be legal to adulterate them, so we can legally produce them and sell them here in the state of Michigan. With that being said, I think it's, there's good and there's bad, and that's why we're here tonight, you guys. I want to talk about it. There's obviously some of these states chose to go with the USDA and not their own agricultural department. And I just don't think it's a financial thing. I think there's other reasons, and I thought we could discuss it tonight. What's your thoughts on that, Tasha?
I wasn't a big fan of the 0.03. And the reason I wasn't a fan of the 0.03 is because in botany, you learn that this plant, when in a climate that is getting hotter and drier every single year, we acknowledge climate change. So we understand that these plants produce THC when they're burnt. When they're in distress, they calm and soothe their cells down by producing higher levels of THC. Mm-hmm. So this is not an occurrence that the farmers are doing. This is a natural occurrence. So the plant is healing itself. So when it produces higher THCs, one, that tells me that it must have been a dry and it must have been a hot season. But I'm a bigger component of, if we're acknowledging that these plants have medical benefits at 0.03, and then we stop it, and then we pick it up again and change the species from hemp to cannabis, because the only difference in the definition is hemp is a lower producing, non-producing THC plant, and the same plant that produces higher levels are cannabis. So then we're not saying, well, to me, what we're saying is hemp and cannabis that is 1% to 12% has no value. And that is absolutely incorrect. What we should be looking at is, how do we use the different values and transition from a hemp into a cannabis? So that, to me, says, if we acknowledge we have infant, toddlers, and regular strength aspirin, if I can go to the store and get some infant drops because it has lower acetaminophen in it, so that the toddler's liver can produce it, right? We can process it. Why are we not saying the same thing about hemp? So why are we not producing low levels for kids, toddlers, and then producing a level that's safe for small dogs, bigger dogs, or animals? And then we have one for people who we have different classifications of aspirin. We should have different classifications of hemp. And therefore, a hemp farmer should have a hemp license and a license to have higher than normal hemp, but we'll call it low accumulating THC. So if the hemp tests high for hemp, but low for cannabis, there should be a process to use it, because it's not like it's invaluable. It's not like it's garbage or trash because it tested high. A farmer shouldn't have to destroy it. We should repurpose it and say, this is just simply low THC, but higher CBD. We have to look at using our resources more wisely. And so that's why I'm a component of, we need to take it from simply marginalizing it to a 1%, and then it has, again, no benefit. We need to make sure that we're using this plant to its full capacity, and to make sure that when something in nature happens, that we're ready for it as the farmer. So if it does test high, there's this protocol. If it tests normal, there's this protocol, without federal regulation or penalty or loss of income. And that's how I feel about that.
Oh, Joe's muted and doesn't know it.
You're muted, Joe. Pastor Brown.
He's still going.
Yeah, you are muted.
Okay, I'm sorry about that, guys. What I was saying is currently in Michigan, we can go as high as 0.5% THC, and then when we're in that area, we can remediate it, and send it to like a CO2 processor. I'm trying to think of the place we use here in the association. I'm going to look it up really quick. I got it right here. So we use these guys. Let's see. Pure Biologics, and they're out of the Detroit area. And these guys, if it's hot, they can bring it back. I mean, why would you want to burn your investment or till it into the ground? I agree with you. I mean, I think there should be more flexibility.
But I feel like this. I feel like this. If you're on a holistic natural journey, right? Why would you want your product to have gone through a remediation process?
Yeah.
You want something absolutely natural. So if it tested natural, you don't want it to go through a chemical process to take it down. You just want something that was down. You don't want something that's gone through a process. So in order to avoid loss, we're processing it now with the CO2 process versus saying, okay, this actually tested a little high, but it's perfect for arthritis cream for senior citizens. Let's use it for that. Let's repurpose it without processing it. We can't promote sustainability, be green, be healthy, and say you can only be healthy if we put it through a process where we remediate it. That does not make sense to me.
Well, I tell you what, the remediation though, before they would allow us to remediate it, it was destroy it.
Exactly, and that
was only a compromise to accept the remediation, because otherwise we would have had to burn it.
Of course, that is the compromise, but I feel like the compromise was to create another industry that farmers have to pay for. But what if you're a small farmer? What are the odds that you have the capital to pay for an entire seasonal crop to be remediated?
It's expensive.
Because you can't go to the bank like, hey, I got some hemp that's testing high like cannabis. I'd like to remediate it. I need, $15,000.
They don't do it.
They will absolutely not touch it. Simply because it's now not hemp. It's actually cannabis that you're turning into hemp.
Yep.
So that, again, make it make sense, Jesus, because that makes no sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me either. Justin, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean the 0.3% threshold that came up for hemp, the only explanation I've ever been able to find or anyone's ever told me is that it's an arbitrary number. There was a research paper back in the 70s that classified hemp as 0.3%, and we've run with that. And, there's countries like Ecuador, they're at 1% because they are looking for more cannabinoid expression. Yeah. So the positive side of it is, as horrible as 0.3 is for farmers to get compliant products year in and year out, because there's so many variables with this plant, so adaptive that it'll change itself within a couple generations so that it's acclimated to the environment and the altitude and all that. But what it's done is it's forced people to look at the other minor cannabinoids that are out there, the CBGs, the CBNs, things like that, which I think has been probably the best thing that's happened in hemp. I mean, we all saw CBD go through the roof at the start, and then it crashed, and then CBG kind of did the same thing, and then it crashed. Now CBN is more acceptable, which ironically, the hemp minor cannabinoids are pushing the normalization of cannabis in other states, because people will start hearing people say things like, oh, it's like CBD, but I get a different effect out of it. Okay. They're not as afraid to try it because they know that it's coming from hemp. And even though hemp is federally legal with handcuffs and blinders and all kinds of other things, it's still something that I think the industry has benefited from it. But I think as an industry, we've grown to the point where a higher percentage allowance that allows for a compliant hemp product, because you don't have to destroy it. I mean, the fact that there are states that don't allow any option not even a retest. Like Iowa, if you're hot, you burn the crop. That's it. There is no retest. There is no remediation option. There's no arbitration on those results. Nothing. just burn your crops, you're done, which is costing people thousands and thousands of dollars. And then the next people that want to get into it don't necessarily want to jump in on the hemp train because they're afraid of what's going to happen to them after hearing nightmare stories of, Farmer Bob had to burn, 100 acres of hemp or something like that. So, but yeah, I mean, as a natural plant, as a natural compound, I mean, 1% THC in a bulk setting is not enough to get the psychoactive effects that a lot of people are afraid of with hemp. I mean, the people I've asked, hey, try this CBD or try this. They're like, I don't want to get stoned. Those are the people that I think are really kind of helping foster that 3% or that 0.3%, excuse me. And the people that understand the plant and understand how the medicine works and understand the human endocannabinoid system and how it works. And at the USDA, they've always been afraid of THCA in meat. It's not the THC, it's the THCA. So it's not even the direct delta-9 compound. It's the acid version of THC that they're worried about transferring into the meat that we consume, that then people consume the THCA, which they feel is unregulated. It's just wild to me. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense at all. That goes into the feed, all the hemp feed bills that are out there. They're, when I testified on the Senate, the Senate hearing last year, they are proponents on the whole thing. Were using fear tactics to basically, they were using those minor cannabinoids and conversions to scare the lawmakers into not passing the bills. By the way, the bills are stuck in the Agricultural Committee, in the Senate Agricultural Committee. Nobody will even take my calls right now. It's quite unfortunate. So we know, all of us agree that it should be 1%. I mean, honestly, I don't think all the way up to 5% is going to hurt anybody if you're giving it to the correct person. Like Tasha said, like baby aspirin, 5% in my mind would be baby aspirin.
I could go with infants at 2%, toddlers at 3%, and little kids, maybe like youth, let's just call them youth, up to 5%. We have to acknowledge that kids get sick, they have injuries, they have things that can absolutely benefit. But again, we're not trying to get them enough THC to get high, to get stoned. But when you look at what other benefits other than the high and stone that THC brings to the table, I feel like we're denying kids and senior citizens the ability to get relief because of our pre-programming. So I think what we have to do is put more funding into education and research. So I think the more we know and the more we can show and the more we can get out here and educate people, because again, if we're saying hemp is 0.3 to 1%, that 1%, there is nobody in the dispensaries buying cannabis that is 2%, 3%. So if we give that a defined market as this is what we use for hand creams, and this is what we use for rheumatoid arthritis, and this is what we use for, I have actually put hemp in patients' suppositories, in vagina suppositories for women who have cramps, women with polycystic ovarian. So to say that now here in Ohio, we're legally not allowed to make suppositories.
Wow.
Because they regulate.
Why is that? Why? I didn't know that. Why is that? Because
they regulate how we are allowed to administer cannabis to patients. So they regulate.
So they regulate the ingestion method?
Yes.
Wow.
And here
we
was
don't do that here in Michigan.
No, they
Justin,
don't.
where you're at, do they do that? Do they regulate the method of ingestion?
Not in New Mexico, but in Iowa, who has a medical cannabis program there that's run by 2 companies. That's it. 2 companies, the entire medical program for Iowa.
Wow, that's
they
shameful.
said, let's make it easy. So smokable hemp, don't do it, because then you won't, if you see a flower that looks like it's cannabis, it's either cannabis or it's hemp, and you can just assume it's cannabis. They just shortcutted the whole thing. So no smokable hemp allowed in Iowa.
That's just lazy.
It is. It is. That was absolutely lazy. But they didn't want us to make suppositories because they were afraid people were just going to be walking around sticking cannabis in their in their rectum, getting high off of cannabis. And so I had to go and test. I had to go and speak to the Senate and say, for every man who dictates how a woman should handle her body, let me remind you. Some of you men will go get a prostate exam, and I can actually touch your prostate. I cannot touch a kidney or a liver, but when your prostate goes bad, I can literally create a suppository to touch and literally lower the inflammation so that you can pee or get an erection, and literally help to relieve some of the stress and tension from your body from having prostate cancer, literally with cannabis. And these gentlemen just looked at me like they had never heard that before in their life. And I said, and that comes from a lack of education. Yeah. If you know you go to the doctor to get a prostate exam, your doctor can touch your prostate. Why would you prevent me with cannabis from touching somebody else's prostate to help them? There was no answer, and no one could.
I swear by them. I swear by the suppositories. I had a high PSA level for a couple years, and I Tommy Chong was the one I was doing business with him at the time, and he said, "Joe, use the suppositories," and so I started doing it myself, and I brought my PSA level down to normal within 24 months.
I have helped people who have had reconstructive surgery. It had hemorrhoids removed. One person had a hemorrhoidectomy, so they had a series of internal hemorrhoids removed and hanging low. We use suppositories and we used a cream, and I'm telling you, their behind looks beautiful. You can't see. There's no scar tissue. They can have a bowel movement without feeling like they're going to pass out from pain. There's suppositories literally have changed some of my patients' lives who have intestinal. We can't say that we acknowledge that people have IBS or IBS constipation, and that IBS constipation does not lead to hemorrhoids. I personally was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian, and it bled so bad, I developed anemia. So developing anemia, they gave me iron. When you take too much iron, it causes constipation. My intestines were shredded. I had to have hemorrhoids removed. That surgery, waking up, that first experience after that surgery is life-changing.
Oh, I bet.
You will.
Hey, you guys, we're going to have to take a break in a minute. Before we take the break, let me say this. It sounds like all three of us agree 1% is definitely needed. That's something we're going to always keep pushing for. But consider this, food for thought, the viewers and people that are watching this. If we had THC even up to 5% and we made legislation that said, hey, those can only be used for topical applications, that would be a start. Because if it's for topical, no one's going to eat that.
Correct.
You'd think, right?
You're not going to get high off it. So why would you destroy that? Why would you destroy that valuable medicine?
Because people eat Tide Pods. People do things that we don't expect them to do. And that's why I said I'm a component of giving a hemp farmer the ability to have dual license so that we could acknowledge that 1% with hemp, but you would be able to go from 1% all the way up to maybe 11%.
So when they came at us, Tasha, with House Bill 4517 last year, and they said, hey, guys, How do you feel about integrating the MRA, which turned into the CRA, the Marijuana Regulatory Agency, into the Cannabis Regulatory Agency? One of the key things that I thought of was, hey, we're going to be part of the Cannabis Regulatory Agency now. You know what I'm saying? As hemp people,
yes.
I knew as soon as I heard that, I thought, you know what? That they're opening the door for exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly.
I mean, I literally thought that when I don't know if anybody else thought about it, but we sure did. We were thinking, oh yeah, we definitely want that.
And I think that's where we should be trying to integrate both of those communities, because I don't feel like we should be competing, but working together. I feel like every single cannabis product, if they were smart, they would have a CBD spinoff. So one would be the medical version and one would be the over-the-counter version. So it would not be a competition, but a collaboration. And so they could literally partner up with different farmers to say, can you grow our hemp CBD version? And then can you grow our large-scale THC production? Then they could be processed and produced in the same factory, same facility, under the same license and regulatory. I think we made this way more complicated than we should. And again, if we were integrated, we wouldn't need the remediation process, because now we could just say, oh, we don't have to remediate it. We just reuse it, repurpose it for this area and not this area. And they would all fall under the same license.
For me personally, and I know you feel this way because you're already saying it, remediation, that's I don't want nothing to do with it. I want the plant in its natural form and as pure and natural as it can be. Remediation is not remediation. So look, we got to take a break, you guys. When we come back, we're going to be gone for about 4.5 minutes. Everyone who's watching for intermission, for our sponsors and so forth. Something to think about. So when we come back, we're going to talk about why it's important that for Michigan, Ohio's the same. Let's see, Arizona also has their own program. They're not USDA programs. They're ran by their own state agricultural department. So when we're talking about why your local ag department is better than the Fed department, that's what we're going to come back and talk about. And there's some, like, you know, I told you the main reason I did it, but there's more reasons, and I think we need to talk about that. So during the break, give us some thought and think about it. And if anybody's watching, please comment why they think maybe you're a USDA licensed farmer or business owner in the hemp industry, or maybe you're in the you have a state grant program. But comment, ask us some questions, get engaged in this, because right now it looks like we're going to stay with MDARD. I talked to MDARD individuals, and they said we got enough money to keep running. And when I actually spoke to Molly Mott, and I was telling Molly, I said, look, the main reason why we can't change it from MDARD over to the USDA is we had 56% of Michigan voters come out and vote in record numbers to legalize hemp here in the state of Michigan. We would be defying the will of the people of Michigan if we switched our state program over to a federal program. That's the number one reason, but there's a bunch of other reasons. So when we come back after intermission, let's all spend a few minutes and talk about this in the second half of the show. Any closing thoughts for you guys, Justin, Tasha?
My only closing thought would be this. The only benefit to me of going to the USDA is if they were going to acknowledge and integrate the hemp and cannabis system so that we could finally interstate commerce with each other. That to me would be the only benefit of going to the USDA, is so that we could have a unified regulatory system for all of America so that we could trade and sell each other cannabis and hemp across state lines without repercussions.
Love it. So let's leave off with that and come back in 4.5 minutes. You guys, anybody watching, it's the next half of the show is going to be specifically about this subject. So stay tuned. I'm going to try to do this without asking you, Justin. So
You can do
let's
it.
see here if I got it this time. We're going to see. We're going to go to a video file. And we need our intermission. All right, guys, I'll see you in 4.5. All right, everybody. We are back, and I am going to add everybody back into the stream. Is everybody back with us?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Awesome job again, Justin. Man, that's just beautiful. I just love it.
Thanks.
It's boy, what a pleasant boy. I can't say enough good things about your work. Praise God. So for those that are just tuning in, the first half of the discussion, we were talking about the 1% THC, the value of having that and the importance. Heck, like Tasha said, we should be able to go up to 5%. We shouldn't have to destroy crops. We do. That's something we definitely need to work on. The second half of the show, we're going to talk about why it's our vote and why it's important that recently we were asked by the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development leaders where we stand on as far as, do we let MDARD continue to run the state program for industrial hemp in Michigan, or do we vote to let the USDA take over? And again, if you didn't tune in earlier, I immediately responded during our phone conversation that in 2018, Michigan voters turned up in large numbers. 56% of the people in the state of Michigan voted overwhelmingly for the legalization of recreational marijuana and for the legalization of hemp farming and processing and the whole hemp program. We legalized hemp in Michigan way before the federal government ever stepped in. And for our organization, the Michigan Hemp Farmer Association, we respect the will of the people, the will of the voters. They spoke loud and clear. They said, look, we want a state-ran hemp program here. There was no federal program we were voting on. We voted for a state program. And that's just the way it should stay. Now, that's my main reason. Now, let me tell you a couple other things that I think why it's important for us to remain with MDARD versus the USDA. As a hemp farmer and as a hemp processor, let me give you first the farming part. So submitting samples. Currently in the state of Michigan, MDARD officials show up on a scheduled day and they have a process in which they go through your field and select specimens of your field and take samples, and then they dry it out and test it to make sure that you're compliant. Once they know you're compliant, they give you a harvest date, and you have so many weeks to be able to get the harvest done and get your hemp out of the field. Now, with the USDA, it's my understanding you have to mail this stuff in, and some of this hemp is time sensitive. So I don't like having to mail things into the federal government. It's nice that we have a local people showing up and taking samples and handling the process. Speaking of local, that's another thing that I spoke to MDARD about. We support local. The Michigan Hemp Farmer Association is a craft hemp farm association. We have a cooperative. We're the small guys. We're the smallest folks in the industry. Consider this: there was less than 200 farmers last year for hemp, and we had 22 members. And minorities only make up less than 1% of the whole industry. So we actually have 2%. So I think we're doing pretty good, being that's the national average. For those of you that aren't a minority or are not aware, minorities do not own agricultural property. That's a problem. So how do we get those folks into the industry? Is through the Michigan Hemp Farmer Association co-op. They don't have to own property. They can get involved in, like, this year's program is going to be the chicken feed program. And we'll actually grow industrial hemp grain over at Jeff Vega's farm. He's on our board, and conduct our research on hemp grain. Think about right now about the price of eggs, you guys, $8 a dozen. Imagine if we can grow grain and we can supplement that feed and bring those prices of eggs back down. The reason the eggs are so expensive is because of the cost of the feed. There's even a conspiracy on the internet and on Facebook that the feeds that we're giving our chickens and are contaminated or tampered with. Whether that's true or not, that hasn't been proven yet, but I can tell you, I feed our hens, our meat chickens, and our laying hens supplemental feed at 20% industrial hemp. I've done it since 2013. I've been doing this, and we got eggs all winter long, and we got great eggs and great product. But to come back to the main point with the USDA, so the only benefit I see with the USDA is regulation and enforcement. Okay. Now, you guys may not be for enforcement, but I'm going to tell you why I'm for enforcement. As a licensed hemp processor and a licensed hemp farmer, I am not allowed to manufacture, produce, ship out, distribution, anything legally. It's all illegal if I make hemp food products that are adulterated with hemp CBD or CBG or any cannabinoid. So I get taken out of the market completely. The only thing that we can sell legally as licensed hemp farmers in Michigan is smokable hemp and smokable hemp and
flour.
Flour and topicals, like cosmetic products. And my son just looked in and said, he seen me stumbling up. He said cosmetics. But cosmetics and flour, that's it. That's all we got. And then if you want to sell hemp foods, the only thing that's legal are 3 products: hemp seed oil, hemp seed protein powder, and hemp seed itself. That's it. Everything else is illegal for licensed hemp farmers and processors. So for me, it makes me sick to have to see these big corporations and people on Facebook. They're doing it and totally breaking the law, and we're completely taken out of the market. And they just get away with it, and that's not lawful. It's not fair. And the people who are doing this, those are the people who are influencing lawmakers because they have big banks, they have big dollars. So they're going to listen to those guys who aren't following the law versus the folks like us who are following the law. And so for me, I think it's time. I told Molly Mott, I said, it's time for enforcement. That's just the unfortunate part. We don't want anybody going to jail, but we'd like to see if I get caught making hemp food products adulterated with any cannabinoid, I can lose my license for up to 5 years. If that's true for the guy who's paying a yearly fee to be a legal licensed hemp processor or farmer or both, this should be the same for anybody who's out here breaking the law that doesn't have a license. I don't know how you guys feel about that or not, but I think it's necessary. I think we've gotten to that point. And the main reason behind it is the people that are breaking the law are getting to make the rules. They're being rewarded for bad behavior. And I think there needs to be a stop to that. I can tell you this much. If I get caught, Tasha, remember we were talking about sending stuff down and bringing it back? They've told me in an email, which you haven't received yet, because we know people are doing it, but they told me, don't do it. Do not do it. You will pay a heavy price for it, including and not limited to asset forfeiture, loss of my license for 5 years, and possible incarceration for industrial hemp. And I'm the licensed person.
That's what I don't understand is if you're a licensed Michigan hemp farmer and you have a processing license, so you can actually take the hemp and process it into a powder or process, but you can't turn it into food. But if I purchase your hemp from you, if I come up there and you ship me legally through the mail 5 pounds of hemp, and I use that hemp here in Ohio and I turn it into feed, and then you buy my feed from me and you sell my CBD infused feed, that my attorney said that's the only legal way you can do it. You have to buy a resource or the product from him because it's federally legal and can be shipped across state lines. He can sell you the hemp. You can process it in here in Ohio because we are allowed to put hemp in food products.
Don't say who let me make a comment. You guys know where I work, but you cannot say where I work. Okay. Don't do that.
Pizza Hut.
Okay. So what's that?
Pizza Hut.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. So the place I work is doing exactly what they tell us we're not allowed to do. And, and I have to handle those products. They told me, and they is being MDARD. And the FDA, actually, when I spoke to them, both entities said, hey, look, you can't even handle it at work. You can't touch those products at work because your license will come against you.
See, but okay, here's how, again.
Ain't that crazy?
Again, if you try to be legal and compliant, I feel like you're being punished and penalized.
Yes, I am.
And so we have to look at, okay, that's why I said in a way I'm for the USDA, but I'm opposed to it because it's not federally legal and limited. So we're still trying to operate in a system that doesn't want, it's like we're trying to drive a car with 2 wheels, but one in the front and one in the back on opposite sides are flat.
Yep.
And so we can move a little bit forward, but we fall to the left. We move a little bit forward, we fall to the right. We keep falling because we're not all on the same track.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, Tasha, you're absolutely right. So I used to work at PayPal as a sales guy selling merchant processing. And I would get the phone calls like, well, how come I can't sell this on PayPal? Well, because it's not federally legal across the board. And they would get huffy and angry about it, all that kind of stuff. It's like, no. California has one reg, New York has another, Florida has another. And as a company, as a Fortune 100 payment processing company that everybody knows and a lot of people hate, they couldn't just carte blanche go, okay, you can sell it everywhere, but you can't ship that to this place and you can't buy it from this place. Like the logistics behind it for them to make it legal to cover all the bases made it impossible, which is why the USDA struggles on this, because you have a state like Michigan with their rules, New Mexico with our rules, Ohio with theirs, Idaho with no rules because they don't want it. You know, I mean, that's
this intentional.
And if the USDA got in the mix and tried to regulate across the board for everybody, it would go nowhere because it would be stalemated. So having it.
But if you did it just like alcohol and said, what we're doing is giving you access to do it by not making it federally illegal, even if your state chooses to have different state regulations. But the thing is, we will not prevent you from federally commerce from state to state. You get what I'm saying? Like there has to be a black and white generic for each state. Now, if each state doesn't want to opt in, that's fine. But to be able to have the ability to do it is what we need access to.
I've been working on this thing for the last 4 weeks now. This adulterated food stuff intensely, well, for months, but for the last 4 weeks. And one thing's for sure, if it's something that's ingestible for a human, there's only 3 things that are illegal: hemp seed protein powder, and hemp seed oil. That's it. Anything else that's food, it's adulterated, and it's a federal crime. And you say, well, heck, it's everywhere. I'm going to read you something that the MDARD sent me. I got right here. I'm not kidding you. This file just keeps getting bigger and bigger because me and Tasha, Justin, are trying to work on, we're trying to figure out how to be compliant. And they're just, every turn I take, it's nope. You know, I mean,
keep moving the goalposts.
But I walk across the street over here to the gas station and they got hemp edibles for sale. It just kills me. Or the place that I work at, they're literally got the whole factory shipping these things out, interstate commerce, just like Tasha said. You know what? I had to tell them. I got a lawyer, and I had to tell him, look, man, here's my license. I am bound by law. I cannot touch this product, regardless of what you think. I refuse. You'll have to fire me. It's just been a huge battle. But let me read you what MDARD sent me. MDARD. I'm gonna show you guys. So here's what it looks like. Oh, I got green on there, so it shows through. But I noticed that about my MSU jersey. That's why I took it off.
Yeah, they don't like the Spartans on StreamYard.
Yeah, they don't want the Spartans on this show. So, but let me read this to you. I mean, it's like there's a lot of things that are important about it, but check this out. Food products containing hemp or hemp-derived products, including cannabidiol, CBD. This is just crazy. Consumable hemp and CBD products have flooded the market in recent years. However, this does not mean all these products are lawful or can be legally produced and sold in Michigan or across state lines. The 2018 U.S. Farm Bill states that the FDA has regulatory authority over production, distribution, and sale of hemp, meaning hemp products must meet applicable FDA requirements in Michigan. MDARD has the authority to enforce these FDA standards. And did you hear the word enforcement? I mean, that's a serious word when you're talking about a government agency. They mean it. They're not just putting enforcement down there for good luck, you know. It's that word is there to deter us because they will punish us for it. With that being said, it's as simple as this, folks. If you make a food product, any food product for an animal or a human, and we're going to consume it, we're going to eat it, an edible essentially, and you adulterate it, that means you add something, a cannabinoid to it, not just CBD, CBG, and anything else you can think of. If you add it to food and you sell it, that's a federal crime right now. And the only reason that it's going on is because they haven't began doing a mass enforcement on it. But I can tell you, after talking in a couple of these government meetings that I've been in the last 60 days, they're going to start enforcing it, and you're going to start having more problems. That's why it's more important than it's ever been in Michigan that we get these bills this package of bills that we have established. That were 5058 and so on, that package of bills, it has everything in there. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Everything that we need to make hemp food products legal for hemp, for animals and humans, they're in our packages of bills that the Michigan Hemp Farmer Association created. I don't care what organization picks up the luggage and gets the job done. They're going to use the same exact language and do everything that we've already written. They're just going to use our bills and our language. And so what if they get credit for it and we don't? I don't care. It just needs to be fixed. This is a major problem. This is killing Michigan hemp farmers.
Well, we as minority hemp farmers, we also have to look at, we need access to capital.
Yes.
So again, without this being federally legal so that we can go to banks, so that we can actually go to the bank and get a decoordination machine that's $3 million, the same way with a USDA. So if this is hemp and this is agriculture, the same way a farmer can go to the USDA and get a USD-backed loan to go buy a silo or have one built or a big machine for $2 million, we in hemp should be able to do the same thing and have access to the same capital. If we're paying taxes and we're being regulated as an industry, that is no different than saying you have to buy your cannabis at a dispensary versus go to a weed spot. So if we want to make it legal, you can't tie the hands of the people who are trying to be legal by over-regulating and then giving them less options than you do the person who is doing the illegal activity.
You guys know this already, but you know the main reason all this is going on, and they play a big part of this in this funkiness that we're dealing with right now, is the big corporate cannabis lobby people, right? They even showed up at the Senate hearing that I testified at to say the bills weren't there. They come in with scare tactics and they say, hey, look, they take this CBD and they do conversions and they make Delta 8 and Delta 10 and Delta 9 and HHC and all these illegal products out of it. The big corporate cannabis lobby is not the friends of small minority hemp associations. They're not doing us any favors, and I don't see that them doing us any favors in the future. It's very hard to work with these folks because they want to run the whole show.
Well, I think it's hard to work with them because they don't see a benefit of working with us.
Well, they don't need us as far as they're concerned. They got the big money. They got the big cannabis money. They
have the big money and they don't think they need us, but we have something more important than their money, and that's the people. We have a vote, and not everybody is cannabis enthused. Not everybody wants cannabis in every store for every option, but what they do understand is relief, and they do want people to have access to release of pain, so they're not on opioids, they're not on this, but they don't necessarily want THC cannabis on every street corner. Like in the Black community, we have a state liquor store or a drive-through. So we don't want to turn the access into an addiction, but we do want to make sure it is legal and compliant. One of the first things that the big cannabis people will say is, oh, well, it's not being tested. And I feel like this. If we make this legal, why wouldn't we just simply work with the Ohio Department of Extension Services again and have those extension agents, like you said, come right out to the farm, do the testing, do it in small batches so that it's not as expensive. We in America have to get away from this large scale farming idea, because that means, like with Tyson Chicken, if we're relying on Tyson Chicken to supply chicken to 75% of America, when they have a problem at Tyson Chicken, all of America feels the effect. Versus if a small farm has a problem, it might only affect 5%, but not 75% of our population. So we've got to get away from this large scale dependency and go back to smaller, go back to craft, because I personally feel like, okay, I'll say it, I'm a little bit bougie. So even though you might have one brand of hemp or cannabis and I have one brand, your grower, how they grow matters. It's just like wine. It is, you can have a Chardonnay and you can have a Merlot, but if you grow this one at this altitude for this long, if you use their recipe, it will absolutely be different. And some people are willing to pay more money for higher quality. So for them to try to fast track and push this cannabis and push our food out like 3D printed pennies is ridiculous to me. Half the food that I was eating, you look on the nutritional value, and the reason we're overweight is because they substituted the actual fiber for sugar. So you think you're eating healthy food, but you're eating a wheat thin, and it's no wheat. It's a wheat thin.
Yeah.
And that is why we all have to eat all this bread and eat these wheat thins, but then turn around and eat a fiber pill because the good stuff has been taken out. And I feel like that is no different than remediation of our medicine. We have to go back to craft by people who enjoy doing what they do, who love doing what they do, because I'm a firm believer in the love you have for what you do comes out in your product. So if you believe and love what you do, if that is your passion, if that is your God-given calling, your tomatoes are going to come out better. So that means your guacamole, and that means your spaghetti sauce, it's going to come back better. When you're doing something on like a family farm and it's generational, that sets a standard. It's not just a policy and procedure in a manual. This is something actually that somebody poured some love and energy in. I believe you're going to get a better quality of product. So I believe in the craft for the quality.
And we're Michigan's only craft hemp industry association, and period. I mean, not just for minorities, period. We're the only craft hemp association in Michigan, period. Hey, Justin, do you have any closing thoughts before we close up for the night?
I mean, the biggest one is, wherever you are, wherever you're doing hemp, make sure you're active. I mean, the number of people I've run across that are in the hemp space that aren't vocal, they aren't active, they aren't a part of an association, they aren't contributing to the greater good of what everyone's trying to do, but still gripe and moan like they're active on and doing the hard work and doing the letter writing and doing the going to the capitals and sitting through meetings and all that. Just make sure that you're supporting it in some way, shape, or form. Because like what Joe does on a daily basis is not for everybody. It's not something I could do, but I will support Joe and I'll support the Michigan Hemp Farmer Association with what I can. It's the time, talent, or treasure. You get to give one if you're asked for it. So figure it out and make that count, because that's what's going to help this industry as a whole. Moving it to 1%, making it federally legal for cannabis, doing whatever. It only happens if people are active and people voice their God-given voice to support or disapprove of something. And that's the best part of being American. Well, we're allowed to be naughty to an extent. But,
so look, you guys, February 1st is going to start Black History Month. And we discussed it, the board discussed it, that we're going to bring on our advisory panel, and we're going to highlight our minority board and for the next show, and interview some of our new board members and talk to our existing board members who staying on for 2023. And we're just going to celebrate minorities in the industry and cannabis felons in the industry on the next episode. And we ask everybody that's watching tonight to tune in for the next show. It's always the last Sunday of every month. It's at 8 p.m. If you're not a member or you are just an advocate of industrial hemp and you'd like to be a member, it's only $50 a year. And that gives you access to all the same information that we have. And we always encourage everyone that becomes members to get politically and actively involved, because everything we do, we're a nonprofit 501c. None of us get paid for this. It's all voluntary, and we could use all the support that you could give us. So with that being said, I just want to thank Justin and Tasha for co-hosting tonight, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you folks and get your insight. You always have a lot of wisdom to share, and you're just such a value to the podcast. So with that, I'm gonna do the outcast here, or the out. What is it called?
Outro.
The outro.
There you go.
Yeah, outro.
And we're just going to ask everybody that's watching tonight to please share and like the video. Please like our YouTube channel if you like what you see. we're the small guys. We're the only ones in Michigan that's been around since 2009. 2009, I started the Michigan hemp industry here for cannabinoids, and we're still here today, praise God. And we got a heck of a team, have qualified board members that have been here for years, and we all know the industry inside and out. We have a deep passion for industrial hemp and cannabis. With that being said, I want to thank my co-host and wish you guys a good night, and I'll see you guys soon.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
You too.
All right, folks, let's do the outro. Thanks for tuning in, and God bless every single one of you. Let's see how we do this here. Right here, we're going to... Have a good night, folks. God bless.